Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is your boy Dr. Rogers, a multiple scholarship winner, and also I'm currently a research professor in Korea. So in this live today, we are going to be talking about how to get the Canadian Skilled Immigration Worker Program. So I'll be bringing forth someone who has experience on how to apply for it. She applied for it before she got hurt. So she'll be sharing tips on how you can apply for this program. So if there's anybody watching out there, please do drop your comments. Or if you are watching the rebroadcast version, please do drop your comments. She will read them, and I will also read them and share my own humble advice on it. And as a disclaimer, she's just here to share advice on how to apply for it based on her own personal experience. We are not experts, but I think from our own experiences, we are able to share advice. I personally, on my own part, I just got my own Korean permanent resident card, and I've been speaking so much about it. I've also talked about how to get scholarships globally and also in Korea. So today we are shifting a little bit to Canada, where I'll be bringing in somebody who is living there. She has the experience. She knows how to do it. I can't speak from what I don't really have an experience from. So it's my friend Francoise, so I'll let her come in and then introduce herself, and then we get to it. So, Francois, I'm bringing you in now online so that we can start as soon as possible. So, Francois, we are live. The floor is
Okay. All right. Hi, Dr. Rogers.
hi, Francois. Nice to meet you on my live
Mm.
stream.
I know. It's been a long time
Mhm.
coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
finally, we've taken 1 year to make this happen.
I
So,
know.
guys, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you are
very
correct.
excited about this.
Exactly. This year was a little bit eventful for me. So
Yeah.
I guess that's why we just kept postponing. But at least I'm happy that we've stopped the postponing and then it's actually happening. So I'm actually happy to
Okay.
be here and
Okay.
I'll try my best to share as much as you want me to. And
Okay.
then, yeah, we'll proceed like that.
Okay. So I'll let you have the floor, and then I'll pull back in the background and then watch with the rest of the people. So the floor is all yours now.
Okay. So hi everybody to anyone who is watching. So as Dr. Rogers introduced me, my name is Francoise, a young Ashu, recently married Kongato. So that's my um, should I say my civil name or my husband's name. I have been in Canada for a little bit over 3 years ago. 3 years, so means I moved here in 2019. So September 2019. So yeah, I'm a little bit over 3 years. Currently, I work as a consultant in IT project management. Sometimes I have different roles: Scrum Master, IT project manager, just depending on whatever project I'm dealing with. And then, just like you, I was once curious about immigrating to Canada. I had a couple of friends who told me about it, and then I did my own research. At the time, I really could not get a lot of concrete information, so I spent time to study the website very well, read every not every page of it, but most of the pages that had to do with immigrating. And the program that really suited me was the skilled workers program. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. There are other programs that you can use to immigrate to Canada, but as Dr. Rogers has spoken to me, he told me that he would like us to really concentrate on what I did or the experience that I have. So for the skilled workers program, what is it? It's just an immigration program on merit meaning that you have to score a certain level of points for you to be eligible, for you to qualify, or let me say to be chosen, because you can be eligible but then you're not chosen. So sometimes I think that's where the confusion is. A lot of people are eligible but then they are not chosen, and it looks as though it's been like the system is being biased, but that's not true. It's because you can actually be eligible, but then you may not be chosen for reasons that by the end of this life, I hope that maybe it's going to be clear for a couple of people. So, what are the following? What are the some of the things that you can consider or you should consider before you even start the process? First thing is, first of all, make sure that you're eligible. And for you to know that, you need to consider a few points. First, your educational level. The higher, the better, right? But I believe that from a high school, you are eligible. But like I said, you can be eligible, but then you will not be chosen because probably your eligibility gets you into what they call the pool. So, which is basically the database where your application is going to be put in, but you will not be chosen from that pool because your points do not match up. So, yes, consider your educational level, but the higher the better. So, I'll give an example. If you have a bachelor's and I have a master's, chances are that I'll have more points than you because at the master's level, I earn more points than you who is at the bachelor's level. Same with PhD. Someone with a PhD will obviously have more points than me with a master's for the educational part, right? Not for overall. The educational part, the person will score higher because they have a higher level of education. So, first thing to one of the things to consider your educational level. The next thing is your language skills. So, as most of us know, Canada is bilingual. So, they obviously consider your French and your English skills. Does it mean that if you're not bilingual, you are disqualified? No. It is true that if you're bilingual, and I mean like truly bilingual, wherein if you take both tests, you will really score high, it gives you a great advantage. But even with one language, you can make it through. Now it will depend on how you score in the language section and the other sections. You can have one language and still have high points, right? But next thing to consider your language skills. Are you fluent? If you take a test, are you really going to ace the test? Because sometimes I know that with some of these tests, I don't know, they can be tricky. So the question is, yes, I'm fluent in French and English, or French or English, but can I really ace an English test or a French test or both? Now, the next thing to consider is your age. Usually, people who are between 18 and 29 have the highest points when it comes to age. So, not overall again, but at the age. So, it means if I am 32 and you are 29 years old, let's say that you have maybe the points for age is on 20. You probably have 20 on 20 for being within that age bracket, and then I am probably going to be like a 15 for, I don't know, 15, or this is not the point, it's just an example so you understand what I mean by you score higher than I who is above that age bracket. But it does not disqualify you. You can definitely be 32, 35, even more than that, and still get chosen. It depends on every other factor. So once these three things are checked for you, you know that you're going to ace your test, or maybe you've already taken the test and then you had good results for your language. You know that you have a good level of education, right? Or at least a qualifiable level of education. And then you know that you're not, maybe above a certain age. So obviously, if you're towards retirement age, you are not eligible, or you might really have a very low chance to be taken. So once these 3 points are checked, then you start the process. So, how does the process start? The process starts first. I always advise people to start by assessing their educational level with the qualified Canadian bodies. So, if you go to the government website, it gives you names of certain bodies that they work with. So, you cannot go to any other body apart from these people. I'll give you at the top of my head. I remember WES. WES is one of them. Another body they call ICES, International Credential something. You have ICAS as well, and then you have CES. So I'm just giving, these are just their abbreviations, but that information is going to be on the website. And maybe after the live, I'm just going to give Dr. Rogers all the links so that he's going to put it on his channel or on his page so that you can access it. So you have to get your school to send your transcript. It doesn't have to be the original. Don't even send the original because you'll not get it back. Just send a photocopy of your transcript and your certification of the highest level. If you have a bachelor's, I'm sorry, not a bachelor's. If you have a PhD, for example, you don't need to send your bachelor's, your master's, and your PhD. Send just the PhD because each of these bodies have a website where you can put in that information that you have all those things, but the document that you will send to them to assess is the highest one. So that's the first one. Why? Because it takes time. Most of them take more than 3 weeks to a month. Now, if you are like me, if you come from Africa, like me, Cameroon, Nigeria, or these other African countries, Ghana, um, you know that our schools are not very proactive like that. So I'll say I was blessed because my highest at the time that I was doing this program was a master's, and I did my master's in Belgium. So it wasn't as complicated as if maybe I had used my bachelor's, which was from Cameroon. But I know a couple of people who their highest level was from their home countries. And not that you're never going to get assessed. It just takes more time because yeah, our schools back home are slow. I don't know if they don't read their emails or they don't pick up their calls. I really cannot tell you. So that's the first thing I'll say you should do. Then please study for your language test. Even if you think that you are a guru who in English language or the French language or both, still study and then take your test. Make sure now, because of how competitive it is, make sure that in each of the bands, so when you get to take a test, you understand what the band is. Each band, so you have 4 bands, right, for both language tests. You have, what's it again? Listening, you have speaking, you have writing, and then you have reading comprehension. You are scored on each of those bands. And when it comes to the express entry skilled workers program, each band gives you accumulation of different points. But I'll let you in on a secret. When you score very high in listening and writing, your points shoot up more than somebody who did not really score high in those 2 bands. But don't neglect the other bands. If you can at least have above a 7 in each of the bands, and then target to have an 8.5 or even a 9, it's possible. It's possible. I know somebody, or no, 2 people as of now. I know 2 people who have had a 9 or 9 in listening, and I know a couple of people who had an 8.5. So it's very, very possible. So your target should be I'm not going to have less than 7 in any of my bands. And then in listening, I will try my best to have at least an 8.5 or an 8, or you can shoot for a 9. Writing the same thing, try to have above 7. A 7.5 puts you already on the higher brackets. And then the other ones, even if I said try not to have less than a 7, if you can shoot up for an 8 or more in those ones, it puts you in a better position than somebody who has maybe 7 in all of it, in all the bands, or maybe scores high in one band and then scores like a 6 or a 5. Their points go down because many people think that the express entry is going to score you on your overall point. That's not correct. It scores you on individual bands. Try it, you and a friend, write English language, and then just try and see. You'll see that you guys don't have, even if your overall was 7.5 or your overall was an 8, if the person scored high where it matters, the person will have more points than you, even though you guys had the overall. And it's the same thing for French. Now, the reason why I'm saying that if you are bilingual, you have an advantage is because if you use, say, English or French as your first language, the second language that you score a high mark in gives you an additional, it can give you up to 100 points additional. And I'm telling you, that's a big deal when it comes to the express entry. It's a big deal. You want to harvest every point that you're able to harvest. So don't get discouraged if you're not bilingual. I know somebody who, with her one language, she was able to go right in. I wrote English and French because I happen to be bilingual and I was not going to leave any stone unturned. I didn't want to take any chances, so I wrote both. And yes, I know that having a high mark in your second language is beneficial because that's what I did, and I harvested 100 points or so. So it has been tested. I've tested it on other people, on two other people, and it works. If you are fluent just in one language, no problem. But if you can do both of them. Now, once you have done those three things, and then you're good to go. What do I mean by you're good to go? There's another link I'm going to share with Dr. Rogers. You can do your simulation by yourself. So there's a tool that the Canadian government even offers to us. You should not rely solely on the tool, but the tool gives you a good idea on where your points are going to be at if you choose to continue with the application. Why do I say it's important for you to do me? I'll tell you to do it before and after. Do it before, even though you don't know what your results are like. Put the points that you hope to have and then see around how many points you already have overall. Right now, the I think the latest draw was 491 points. So let's say you use the CRS tool and then your points are like 350. Truth is, even if you go through, do the assessments, write both tests and all, you might not get to 491. Because if you did, most times when people do the simulation, they put their best foot forward. So it means that you're putting, like, you're going to have a 9 in everything, you're going to have this. So maybe the other factors just don't favor you, right? Maybe you're a little bit older, so you lost a lot of points with age, and then maybe you just have, I don't know, like a high school certificate or a bachelor's, and then because you have a bachelor's and then your age too is, it's like, I don't know, above 40 and things like that, it did not put you in a good light. My advice: don't go ahead with the skilled workers program. Check, there are other programs. Maybe you might not be qualified for the skilled workers program, but something else can qualify you. Maybe there's a province that's looking for somebody who is in your field. There are other programs that are they're on the website and then they're coming up every day. Keep your eyes open for new programs and then check for already existing ones. Just because you don't qualify for one program doesn't disqualify you from the next. But I'm telling you, this process is expensive. If you can avoid yourself from going ahead with something that you would have just saved your money, and said, okay, I'm going to check out, maybe I qualify for something else and go in for that, is going to be better for you. So that, for me, that's my advice. Do it before. If your points are like 470 something, 480 something, go for it, because maybe there's something that you can change. For example, your points got there without you maximizing the points on the language. You can tell yourself that, okay, maybe if I score really higher than what I put in the simulation, I'll get to the cutoff point that has usually been announced. And another tip that I'll give you is, if you want to do this program, try to look at statistics for the year you're getting into. Look at the cutoff points that they've been taking so far. So, what is the cutoff point? It's just a point that the government announces every month to say that, okay, this month we're going to take people who have this point and above. Like I said, the last draw that was November 23rd, I still follow it up because there are a lot of people that I give advice to, and then I'm helping with the applications. Nothing paid. So I follow it up and I just like to know. That's how I came to Canada. So I just want to be in the know. So yes, 23rd of November, they took people who had 491 points and above. So let's say that after the 23rd of November, you're planning to get into the poll. I would say that target the previous cutoff points. So if you know your points are not going to be anywhere around the cutoff point, that's my advice. I don't think that you should really waste your money for this particular program. But like I said, research for other programs. Okay. So once you've done this, once you've gathered the three documents that you need, so they send back the result for your assessment. And for the assessment, don't worry. Most times it's just to say that, okay, this person's master's or this person's PhD or this person's bachelor's is commensurate to a Canadian one. So it's not like it's not something that is I don't know, out of this world. So they will send you back a document that stipulates that, and that has a code on it. Then you must have received your language test or your language test if you wrote two of them. And obviously, you have your birth certificate already. Then you go to the government website. Again, I'm going to share the link, and you create a profile. So this profile is what is called the your express entry profile, which is an expression of interest, right? So you're expressing to the government of Canada that you are interested to immigrate as a skilled worker. Oh, one thing I forgot. Obviously, we were talking about skilled worker. The one other thing you need to check. Oh, very important. Good thing I remembered. Very important is that the occupation that you are in, or you may have done it in the past and probably you're no longer doing it, but at least you have work experience. Make sure you have work experience in one of the many um, occupations that qualify you as a skilled worker under this program. And the reason why I'm not telling you, for example, this because there are so many, there are thousands of them. But it's very easy for you to know if your occupation features. Again, I'll share the link with Dr. Rogers. But if you go to the government website, if you look for NOC, so there is a national occupation codes for the express entry program. It's every occupation that is under NOC 0, A, and B for the express entry skilled workers program. Now, the other programs, other grades enter into that, but for this particular program, it's everybody under NOC, like everybody whose occupation features under NOC 0, A, and B. It's very easy. You just put in your job title, and then you see it on the list. Sometimes, because we come from countries which name things differently, I'll advise you that, let's give an example. You are maybe an accounting analyst, and then you enter it in there, and you don't see the job title accounting analyst. Now check analyst or check accountant, and then choose the one that is closest to what you do on a day to day. So many times people really are qualified there because they don't see their exact job titles, they get discouraged. But remember that this is another country. It might be the same thing or almost the same thing that you're going to be doing, but then it's just worded differently. So be wary of that. Be careful with that. um, your occupation might not be exactly as like the role, right? Your role that you're giving your company back home or whichever country you are in may not be exactly like what you will see worded on the NOCs, but don't disqualify yourself. Check, there should be something which is closer to what you do on a day to day that probably falls under 0, A, and B. So I just needed to say that before we move. So once all of that is correct, your occupation features under 0, A, and B, and you have work experience, obviously, above 1 year, the higher the better. In this program, we want to harvest points. So obviously, the higher the better. I think once you have 3 years and above, you grab a lot more marks than somebody who has 1 or 2 years experience. So you're good with that one. It falls under 0, A, and B. Your language check, your educational credential assessment is back, is good. And then You open your profile. Very easy to do. It's just like when you're creating an email or any account anywhere. They'll just ask you questions, your name, first name, last name, and all of that. Okay, and if it's your first time creating a profile, they'll ask you, um if they'll ask there's a question they will ask you, if you've ever had an account before. And if you say no, they will take you to another window where you're going to enter still your information, your name, just to make sure that you're eligible, right? Because I think they don't want to waste space. So they'll ask you a few questions, just um very straightforward questions. And then once you answer, they'll say, okay, it seems like you are eligible. That's the first part. Now a code comes out, and then is that code that you will use to open your account. So just follow the what they call the instructions, and then create your account. Once you've now answered everything, because that one was just like I said, it was just straightforward questions. But now in your profile that you're going to be creating, they will ask more detailed questions. They will ask you the test you took, what date you took it, the results you had, and then the code. The test has a code. They will ask you for your credential assessment. Have you ever studied in Canada? If your answer is no, it means that you should have a credential assessment. Your answer will be yes. They'll ask you the code. So once you've answered all of that and fill out all the information about your occupation, about if you have relatives in Canada, that's another thing that gives you points. If you have close relatives, so father, mother, brother, sister, and maybe steps, there's no niece, uncle, auntie, no, doesn't feature. Or grandmother, grandfather, good. But if it's not really that really close knit family, it doesn't give you any points. Um, so this is for people who are out of Canada, right? Because even people within Canada don't know this, but this is how you can also have documents. This is how you can have a permanent residence by joining in the program. Maybe you came as a student, but before coming as a student, you had some skilled work. Even if it's 1 year, apply. Why? Because you, as a Canadian student, you have more points than those of us who come as international people. So that's another thing too. So once you've created your profile, you are going to receive an email saying that you have created a profile. This is what they call, and then now they've put you in the pool. Again, it's just a database where your application is going to be launched into. You just sit and wait and listen whenever there's a draw. If there is don't please don't go back and forth in your application. It doesn't change anything. The day you're going to be chosen, they will send you an email. But how do you know that you're chosen? Just always know the points that you have. Let's say that your points are 492, and then last draw was 491. This draw they decide to go 493. Don't get discouraged, because I'm telling you, most times um they will come back. They might come back to 491 or even go to 490, and you know that the next draw you're going to be chosen. So once you're chosen, let's just fast forward. Today we're looking at everything ceteris paribus, ideal situations, right? So let's say the next draw that comes, you had 492, and then they chose people who had 491 and above. You know immediately that anytime from now you're going to receive your email. The email comes telling you that they are happy to inform you that you have been invited. That's what they'll tell you, that you've been invited to apply. That's why it's called an ITA, invitation to apply. So, what are you now applying for? This is where you properly start the permanent resident application. So, whatever thing you did before was you expressing to the government of Canada that, look, there is this program that I've seen, your Express Entry Skilled Workers Program, and I think I qualify. And these are the things that what I'm showing off to you, and I think I can make it. And then now, once they choose you, and it's not human beings that do this. This one is this at this level is still very automated. I believe, and somebody who works there has affirmed it, that it's actually automated. So don't think that anybody will look at your name and say, oh, this person comes from this country and I'm going to be biased on them. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you are in the pool and you score the points, you receive an invitation to apply. Now, this is where human hands get into the matter. Once you receive the invitation to apply, they ask you to start your permanent resident application. You're given 60 days to complete the application. Okay, the first step, so when you were getting into the pool, they were asking just so they're asking you to fill stuff without the documents. They will not ask you to scan any documents and upload on their website. No. But then when you have received the ITA invitation to apply, this is where they ask you to show proof by uploading documents of everything that you said you had. So be careful now. Don't go about lying, saying that you have things you don't have, because you will have to prove it, right? Make sure that everything that you said you're able to defend. If you say you're 25 years old, make sure that you have a birth certificate, legal document proving that you are 25 years old. If you said you had, I don't know, 9/9 in English language, make sure that at this point now you have a document to scan. So at this level, like I said, everything you do is scanning. But there are particular things that you have to note. The reason why I said that it's an expensive process is where this is because it's at this stage that you start seeing the real expenses. Obviously, you already start spending by sending the assessment. You have to pay the body, and I guess you have to pay for sending the documents to Canada. If your school is not going to do it, you have to pay for the language test, right? But then the real money is when you start applying for your permanent residence. First, you have to make sure that you have at least uh we're just going to round it up. 13,000 CAD is 12,900 and something, but it's, yeah, those, let's just round it up to 13,000. Make sure that you have at least 13,000 CAD to show, like, in the document, bank account, investment document, or something that you can show, you can prove that I have this money is in my name. Make sure that you have that, because when you were answering the questions before getting into the pool, they asked you and you said yes. So make sure that you can come up with that money. If not, I mean, I'm sure that you knew they're going to choose you, or you were hoping they choose you. So start, putting documents. You should have already started putting documents together, making sure your bank account is all good and all set, and you have that money. If you have more, it's okay. You must not, just because he said you should have at least 12,900 and something. You can have exactly what they've asked, or just a little bit above. So don't go and kill yourself. If you can come up just with 13,000, it's fine. It's above the least amount. So don't say, oh, I'm going to prove a point to the Canadian government, and I know they've asked for something around 13,000, but I'm going to show them 16, and maybe they will like me more. No, you can show them 13. You can show them even $5 above the list that they've asked you, and you still be eligible, right? Um, you have to do police certificates. Back in Cameroon, it's called non-convictions, and then obviously if you're abroad, it's called it's still called police certifications, just criminal background checks and all of that. That's what I'm talking about. Now you have to do it for every country where you have spent 6 months. So if you're a traveler, I'm not a short-term traveler. If you're somebody who has traveled a lot and made more than 6 months in every country you've been to, know that you have to come up with the police reports of police clearance. That's the right word. Police clearance of each of those countries. So be mindful of that. At some point, you have to do the medical examination. And this is not where you walk into any kind of hospital and you pay off and say, and don't actually do the test. Mm-mm. Canada made sure that they partnered with specific physicians. They call them panel physicians, who you can go to get those tests done, and they are going to make you do them. So I'm telling you, pay for every test that they ask you to do. That's money again right there, right? And then obviously You have the permanent residence fee that you have to pay. You have the application, the general application fee, which you have to pay, and then the what they call it, biometrics, the biometrics fee. So yeah, that's why I said it will get expensive real quick. So if you know that there is something that you lied about and then you're not going to be able to defend it, don't go ahead, because you might end up just really spending a lot of money. Even the beginning, just the test and the educational assessment, a lot of money. um yeah, so I just wanted you to know that. So this is where you start doing payments. At this level, the only payment that you did was for yourself, for you to write the test and send whatever. The Canadian government had nothing to do with that. But now when you're doing your permanent resident application, the proper one, you have to bring all documents, like I said. For your occupation, your job, right? You would have to either get something written by your manager, I don't know, somebody at work, your supervisor, saying that, okay, this person said they are qualified in this role. Let's say, for example, you said you were an accountant. Your supervisor or somebody from your company on the company's official letterhead must write a letter. I will not call it a letter of recommendation. Let me just call like attestation of employment. That's how I'm going to call it. Because in that document, they are supposed to stipulate that you've been working there for X amount of years, and for X amount of hours weekly. Another thing, if your job is not up to, is it 30 paid hours? Yeah, you cannot consider that as employment with this program. So make sure that your hours were above that. I think it's 30. It should be 20 or 30, but just make sure that it's 40 hours or at least 35 hours to be in the green, on the green side of things, right? Yeah, the person has to put that. The person will also have to put your, what they call it, your remuneration. So how much they paid you yearly. And then what else? And then just a few lines about the role. Make sure that the role that you're doing matches with the knock that you've chosen. It's very important, because it's because you said that this knock featured as the knock that you had experience in, that made the system find you eligible. So you don't want to list out roles that don't tie with the Knox role. So what am I saying? Sometimes you actually have so it's actually correct, right? You actually did the work, but then your manager is going to go and write other things. So make sure your manager writes the roles that are important, that will tie with the knock. Let him not go off topic and be putting other things. Let it be them. So I don't know if you understand. Yeah, they really have to correspond for the employment part. If you can, so with this program, if you have this letter, it's official. There is official stamp, official signature, and then official company letterhead. It can be checked. You are good to go. If you want to make it a little bit better, maybe you can add an insurance stuff still showing that you're an employee of this company, or your country goes with national employment numbers, things like that. If you have that kind of document, so basically every document that just corroborates that, okay, this person said that they've worked in this field, and then these are documents attesting to that. So that's just what this part is. Everything you said that you have, put the documents. But most especially in the application, there are question marks on each document that they ask you to do. If you just hover your cursor above that question mark, the Canadian government tells you the kind of document that they want you to submit. Make sure that you adhere first to what they've asked you, and then add additional ones. Now, from my experience, we're having to apply for a lot of things, be it school programs and visas abroad and all of that. Sometimes I'll tell you the truth, all those additional documents are not asked for really can instead cause you trouble for your application. So what am I saying? If you hover over each question mark, and then you are about to submit a document that was not really required, my advice, don't bother putting it, right? So they are very detailed about what they want. So once you see it, make sure that you first of all meet their requirements before you think of adding something additional. So once you've done all of that, and please, once you're in the pool and you know that you're going to be chosen because your points are either around the cutoff points or maybe even above the cutoff points for the past couple of months, start preparing documents. Because 60 days looks like is a lot of days, but you realize that once you start gathering documents, it's a lot, like it's not a lot of time. So if you can start even already putting some things together way ahead, for me, that's the best way for you to do it, so that when now you get your invitation to apply, you're just uploading documents that you already arranged. Of course, there what else is there anything that they'll ask you? Yeah, so once you've done this, you send in your application. So sending in your application is just obviously clicking submit and following and acknowledging that everything that you've said is correct and blah 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 blah. And then it has gone. Make sure that you do it within the 60 days. Try to do it within the 60 days. So once you've done that, you just sit now. My advice is pay for every fee that they'll ask you. They'll ask you if you want to pay for your biometrics upfront. And my advice, pay for it upfront. They ask you if you want to pay for your permanent residence application. They like the application. If you want to pay for it as well, pay for it already. Pay for it. Pay for everything they ask you. So I think everything should come up to like 1,000 and something dollars. I'm sorry that I'm not giving you guys as the exact estimations, but it's 1,000 and something for now because they had increased the fee. So once you do that again, you wait. There's a lot of waiting when it comes to this program. So you wait, and couple of weeks, it could be months for you, it could be weeks for another person. You're going to receive the first thing that you usually receive is wait. Oh, I skipped what your medical. Sorry. Um, they would ask you to do your medicals obviously before, but I already mentioned it. I think, yeah, you have to put in your medicals as well. Go to the panel physician. Again, if you go to the website, I'm going to share the link with Dr. Rogers. Anywhere that you're in the world, there is a panel physician somewhere around you. Maybe not exactly in the country that you find yourself in, but it'll be probably in a neighboring country. So you need to go to their physician, and this is something that um, you cannot be exempted from. You cannot say that, oh, where I stay, there's no panel physician. They'll ask you to go to the closest country and get your medical examination done, because you need this. You need this before before you receive your request for biometrics. So once all of that is done, your police certification also will be done. Again, like I said, if you've done 6 months in any country, make sure that you request for them to do a police clearance document and send to you. Just saying that you're not a criminal and then you've not been caught for anything, because they asked those questions and you said you're not a criminal. So yeah, they want to see proof of that as well. Now, the first thing you're usually going to receive is a request for biometrics. If you've never applied for a Canadian visa, let's say before this program you had tried to apply as a student and then you didn't get the visa, but you got to do the biometrics and then you did not get the visa. Now they might exempt you from a biometrics, because normally the Canadian biometrics has a validity of 10 years. But there are certain applications where even if you already had to give your biometrics, they'll ask you to redo it. I don't know if they'll ask you to redo it. At the time that I was doing mine, I had never applied for a Canadian visa or anything of that sort. But I know that with my husband, um, he had applied for a Canadian visa before, and then with a program that we did recently, he didn't need to give his biometrics again. But then it was not the skilled workers program, so that's why I cannot tell you for sure if they will ask you to give your biometrics. But whichever the case, if they ask you, it's just very simple. They will give you the address where they want you to go to. You just go there, give your fingerprint, they'll take your picture, ask for your passport, blah blah blah, and that's it. It's done. And you come and wait again. It's a lot of waiting. So once you're waiting, what are they doing? They're just doing the checks, making sure that everything that you said that you had, you have, making sure that the documents are authentic, making sure that, and they will call, especially the banks, to make sure you have the money, they will call. I can tell you that for a fact. They will call. So make sure that the money is yours, or at least the money is there, right? You have access to the money. It's not something that you put in there just for the application, and once you've printed it out, you remove everything. They will call. They will call. I know that they cannot exactly ask their bank how much you have in your account, but I think there's a way for them to know that there are certain questions that should fall within the law that they can ask the bank, and the bank is going to develop that information. So please make sure that the money is there. So if they've done all the checks and then everything is good to go, the next thing you're going to receive is a document. Now, this document is where they'll ask you they'll ask you if something changed about your situation. If you got married, so while you were waiting on them, have you gotten married? Have you had a child? And stuff like that. Or maybe if you did with a partner, or this program you can definitely do with your partner. And sometimes some partners really make you score high. So please, it's not for singles only, it's for married people as well. Matter of fact, if you guys are two strong candidates, so if you and your husband have high level of education, and then you know your onions when it comes to language, I bet you your points are going to be very, very high. So yes, married couple. Wait, let me say married couple. You're already, if you're a couple, you can get into this program. So yeah, they'll ask you that. So that if anything changed, if you got married while this thing was going on, um, they will send you new documents. They'll send you new documents that you have to fill, you and your husband, and then send back to them. Because I guess they don't want to have that back and forth thing, right? Where okay, you got married while the process was going on, and then your spouse is not given. So because of that, your spouse is going to be given permanent residence if you got married after. Because mind you that if you were married and you did not say that you were married, it will be problematic for your spouse to come and meet you in Canada after. So for me, even if you're going to do it by yourself without your spouse, please don't say you're not married. Say you're married, but say your spouse is not going to be accompanying you. Maybe you can do it like that, but don't say you're not married and then come after to show them a document. Once you're in Canada, you say, oh, now I want to sponsor my spouse, and you're showing them a document which dates after, I mean, which predates, right? Yeah, which is like before you were applying. So they are going to know that you're not honest in your application, and it's going to be problematic for you, and maybe your spouse might never be able to come to Canada. Now, once you answer these new things, you probably send them back a reply and say, no, everything is fine. Nothing has changed about me. If I was married, I'm still married. I'm not divorced. If if I didn't have a child, I still don't have a child. Or yes, now I'm married. Now I have a child. For anybody whose situation has changed, there will be new documents. I'll get into the what's the word? Well, they'll come into play. Let's put it like that. But for you that nothing has changed, once you send that, the next thing you're going to receive, maybe a couple of days. For me, it was the next day. But I know some people that is a couple of days after, um, or maybe even weeks after. Now telling you that you have to send your passport to the particular consulate or embassy that they'll put on the address. Have to send your passport. Sometimes you can go and drop it by yourself. In my case, I was in Belgium and the embassy was in France. I was not going to go again to France the second time. I went for my biometrics, but this time around, all I did was send in my passport with the picture which they ask. They'll tell you the dimensions that they want, and you really need to go to a professional photographer who understands this thing, because they're very specific. And if you make a mistake, they will send your stuff back and you have to do a new set of photos. So I did that. Then I sent in a UPS return mail so that so that they send my passport back. So yeah, once you send your passport, you just wait and they send it back to you. For me, it was within a week. It came back to me, and then that was it. So that's how I got to Canada. I don't know if I've missed out something for this particular process. Now, remember, I was not married at the time. I only got married recently. So I was single. That's why I did not talk a lot about the marriage situation. I just mentioned it, you know, very briefly. So yeah, that's it. So Dr. Rogers, I think you have the floor now.
Your questions. Wow. Thank you very much, Francoise, for um these detailed explanations. Yeah, I have a couple of questions here from which I got before we started
Okay.
the stream because I had to reach out to a couple of people. They had questions prepared.
Okay.
Then I think those that watch later on they might have questions. And then also somebody commented I would it would have been nice you share your computer and show how it's done. So I just told the person, well, probably that will be for another time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can have a separate video on how it's done.
Yes.
But I feel like
Hmm.
it's better if we do it in compartments. Maybe understand
Yeah.
the program and then how it's
Hmm.
done. I get maybe the person already has understanding and then they want to know how it's done. But there's some people who don't even
Yeah.
know what the
Yeah.
program is about, and it might just confuse them.
Yes, yes, that's right, that's right. Like I told the person, there is so much information to be shared within a very short period of time. So we're going to I'll drop the few questions we have, and then we're going to schedule again, depending on your time availability as well. And
Okay.
explaining through, there are so many questions. Like, let me just ask the very few. I had to group them together. Some of them you answered already while explaining. One of the question was for a married someone who is married with kids, does a family person have higher chances of being selected, or would you advise the person applies first before now filing in for the family?
Okay.
Do you
Um,
understand? Yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. So, like
Mhm.
I said, almost towards the end, if you are now, it depends on your situation, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
You can be a married couple and then apply both of you, because applying as a couple will give you more of an advantage. So let's
Mhm.
say, for example, you're a couple and then both of you have maybe a master's, or at least
Mhm.
one has a bachelor's, the other has a master's. Let's take it like that, right? And then it so happens that I don't know, there's one person who is bilingual and then the other person who is really very good in either French or English. I will advise such a couple to apply together, because the chances are that their points are going to be high. Now, if in a situation where, I don't know, one spouse really is not advantage, like does not bring in the advantage, let's say that yes, you are fluent in a language, but I don't know, you have just a high school certificate, and then you're quite advanced in age as well. Yeah, you don't bring any advantage applying with your other spouse, who maybe by themselves were going to score a lot of points. But like I said, you will still need to mention that you are married with kids, but you're going to be applying alone. Please don't say you're single. Say you're married, right? But just mention that, I think there's a place there in the application where you can say you don't have an accompanying spouse. Um, and then definitely when you come to Canada, you can now sponsor them to come after. But if you see that both of you applying together just gives you more points, of course, apply. And know that it doesn't matter if you have, it doesn't matter the amount of children that you have, it doesn't disqualify you. Now, the only thing with applying as a family most times is the financial burden. Obviously, applying alone, I need just 13,000 francs. you applying as a family. First of all, there is you and your wife, and then with every child comes an additional amount. So sometimes, let's say, for example, a family of four, they probably need to show that they have at least 33,000 dollars in their account. So for me, that's the one drawback. If even if you both are good to go together,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely you can apply alone. But please don't say that you're single. Say you're married, but you don't have any accompanying spouse.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a good question because it answers the second question, which the other person asked was about proof of funds, the proof of
Mm,
your funds. And with what you just explained, I think it's the same thing with Korea. It's the same thing with Korea. When
mm,
you're applying for permanent here in Korea or even visa stuff, if you have two kids, three kids, four kids,
it makes it
the the bank statement or the
goes
proof of
higher.
funds goes higher. So the
Yes.
question was about proof of funds, especially for people who are from developing countries, right?
Okay.
About your
Mm,
proof of funds, how long is the money supposed to be within your bank account? Like how long is it supposed to be for a year, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month? Can you put in for 1 month, pull it out, or what is your own advice on that aspect?
okay. My own advice is that remember that this is a rigorous process. First of
Yeah.
all, one thing to note is that that money is supposed to be in your account at least 3 months before you even
Mm.
apply, right? So the reason
Yeah.
why I said that before you even start undertake this process or program, make sure
Mhm.
that you have found out that you are in a good position. Let me give an example. I'm sorry, Dr. Rogers, I'll put you on the spot here. But you remember the first time that we met, right?
Yeah.
I did a simulation for you and your wife. And then I
Yeah.
gave you
Yeah.
my honest advice. I told you that listen, if you're going to apply by yourself, probably he'll give you a chance. But
Mhm. Mhm.
as of
Mhm.
now, because of how high the points had gotten,
Mhm.
chances were going to be that you might just be in the pool for a long time and then you would have wasted money writing all these exams and educational whatever. And then you pulled out,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
didn't go ahead with it. Another person, I know a lot of people would not listen to me when I told them. Maybe they felt like I didn't want them to come to Canada, but you listened, right? So
Yes.
let's
Yes.
let's say that make sure that you know that if you're starting the program is because you have done the CRS tool thing I said. Just do a little simulation and see if your points even resemble the recent cutoff point. Then start putting in the money at that point. Because what is the proof of funds? The Canadian government tells you what they want. They want a document from your bank showing the average amount of money that you've had for the past 6 months to 1 year. Let me tell you, if you just drop that money in the account, that document alone, what your bank is going to tell them, will sell you out. Now, okay, let's not talk about this sort of thing live. But I know that sometimes people can cheat this thing around back home. But in developed countries, there was no way for me in Belgium, there was no way that I was going to tell them that there was this amount, there was no this amount, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, I did not have the luxury of putting the money and withdrawing it. The money even had to be there 3 months at least before. I was a student, I was working, and since I knew I was going to do this, at least I had saved a amount of money here and there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the money
That's
needs to be in the account throughout.
mhm.
Throughout.
Okay. And then another person's question is what is the age limit for the program? Is there any age limitation for
Yeah,
applying?
there is an age limitation. I believe it's 50 or 50. Yeah, it's 50 because at least they want you to at least work. Remember again that this is a win-win thing, right? In as
Yeah.
much as Canada is giving you permanent residence,
Mhm.
they want your skill.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you come and then after 2 years you're
Mhm.
retiring, what good is it for them? You know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for this particular program, I'm going to be very honest. I feel like the older you are, it puts you in a disadvantage. But then again,
Mhm.
remember, if you are older, but then you're bilingual, and then you have
Mhm.
a high level of education, definitely you have an advantage, even though you're
Yeah.
older, because you might lose points with age, but then gain it back with language and your
Mhm.
educational
Mhm.
level. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's almost all applicable. Same to with Korea, we have that. Like
Mm-hmm.
the age where you have the highest points should be between 29 to 32. The points
Oh,
are higher,
higher.
so
Oh, oh, oh.
it's like a pyramid.
Mm-hmm. In Canada,
From
it's between
from
18 and 29.
yes, then from 32 going down, your points for age
Start dropping.
starts dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one is if you have secured a job in Canada, if
Mm-hmm.
you secure a job in Canada and you want to apply for this program, how does it add any advantage to
Oh my
you
goodness.
or
Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry I did not add this. Oh, oh, oh. Actually, Dr.
yeah,
Rogers, you
yeah.
have thank you for that question, because the question makes me remember that I didn't add again, because
Yeah.
I was talking about myself, right? So I forgot about the
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
things. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, other things that gives you points is three different things. This, what the person said, if you have a job in Canada, it means that you would have had what they call an LMIA. Your job would have given you that, because your job needs to give you that to say that they're sponsoring you to come and work in Canada. It gives you, I mean, it just puts you in a different light. You and I are no longer at the same, we're no longer at the same level, right? Or you studied in Canada. I'd mentioned that briefly. It gives you more points. Or um, you had, how do you call it, an invitation from a province, because mind you, that even if a province invites you and then you qualify with them, you still need to qualify at the federal level, and you need to pass through this federal the express entry on this at this level. So it's the same thing. If you have a job in Canada and you want to do this, it's the same thing. The only difference is that at the part where I say no, I don't have any job in Canada, but I have work experience from wherever I have it for this amount of years, you are going to say yes, you have a job in Canada, and then you're going to put whatever document attesting to that. Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's
Yeah, another question from someone else. Thank you. Can a refugee in another country apply, like given the fact that he or she cannot return to his or her country?
yes, yes. A refugee can apply, but I believe that refugees.
Uh-huh.
So if you're going to be applying and saying that you're a refugee,
Yeah,
they will send you to a different program.
a different program.
Yes, they will send you to a different program. So they will ask you. They would ask you, not a different program,
Mhm.
but you're scored somewhat differently.
Okay,
You understand?
okay.
So yes, definitely
Yeah,
you do. But again, I'm telling you, this country loves what is attractive to them. There are separate refugee programs that you don't need all
hmm.
this language, whatever, whatever, whatever. I
No, yeah, the question is the person is not applying to be a refugee there. They are a refugee in another, like for example, somebody is a refugee in another African country.
and they want to come to Canada, right? I've understood what you mean.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
understood
yeah.
what you mean. And the reason
Okay,
I'm
okay.
saying so is because if you even go to the
Mm-hmm.
Canadian website, you would
Yeah.
see where they're already saying that if you're a Ukrainian refugee, apply this way.
Yeah.
They don't send
Yeah.
them
Okay.
to, do you understand?
Okay.
So let's say
Okay.
that obviously they will ask you that question in the application.
Yeah.
If they ask me, I'm not a refugee, so I said no. If they ask you and you
Okay.
answer yes, you
Mm-hmm.
probably have some different steps, but it doesn't, what I'm trying to say is that that's not what disqualifies you. Being a refugee does not disqualify
Okay.
you, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If you're a refugee, but then you don't meet to other things that they want you to meet, that's what disqualifies
Mm-hmm.
you. But being a refugee in
Okay.
itself is not
Does
what
not
is going to
disqualify.
disqualify you. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for that question. There are more questions. There are more, so many questions. But I think to keep this video not too long, because it was
Mhm.
scheduled for 1 hour, we're gonna schedule another one for another day, depending on your availability, and then probably we come up again. So I'll put the questions together. I'll keep them up. Then we can have another stream another day to talk more about it. And I want to thank you so much for sharing this information here with my subscribers and anybody who will watch. You know, personally, like you just said, it's a hobby for you following up these so that you can help people in one way or the other. I myself, I do the same thing here because I've benefited from so many scholarships and also so many opportunities just by the fact that I did hear someone sharing their how they got theirs. And myself
Mhm.
and Francoise, we are friends, good friends, because I fell on her video sharing this same information. I was like, wow, let me get to this lady as soon as possible. And she's been very helpful, very, very, very helpful. And I want to say thank you on behalf of all those that have been watching. We'll probably schedule again for another day. So, any
Definitely.
last thing you want to say before you leave so I can close up?
Not no, nothing really. Just just to thank you as well,
Yeah.
for the opportunity to speak up, to
Mm-hmm.
share what I have to share,
Yeah.
and just always being transparent. So I mean,
Yeah.
it was good. A little bit
Okay.
weird. It's not something that
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
used to doing, but yeah,
Yeah. That's
it's
true.
fine.
That's
So
true.
it's yeah.
All
So
right.
thank you for having me as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Then I'll take you off from the screen. All right. So, all right. Thank you very much, everyone. So, if you've watched the video, please make sure that you do subscribe. We'll come again with another phase and talk about this and more programs in the future. So, see you again. This has been your boy, Dr. Rogers. Bye.